Hey everyone, and welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Ash Paulson and RogersBase to discuss the reveal of Fire Emblem 3 Houses. So let's get started. Alright, so we've been talking about it, we've been wondering about it, they've teased it for a while that hey, a Fire Emblem is coming to the Nintendo Switch, and now we finally see what it's going to be, and it comes in the form of 3 houses, and right off the bat, I really like the look of this game. Like, it left a very good first impression for me. But Roger, I know you're just as big a fan of Fire Emblem as me. What did you think of 3 Houses?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I love that it looks like the older console Fire Emblem games. It looks like it's going to be darker in tone. It still has the anime waifus that we know and love now after Fates and Awakening. We've got Edelgard and that awesome new character that's seen in they had like that little anime cutscene from the original reveal. I love everything about this, and I really like too, even though maybe this doesn't bode well for an upcoming Advance Wars, that each of the characters, you have soldiers behind you now, so it actually feels like you're in these giant battles with armies behind you. I think that's such a neat little touch that they have the soldiers in there during the battles, and I cannot wait to play this in the spring.
Yeah, I have to say, that was the main thing I noticed, even as kind of a more casual Fire Emblem fan, was just the scale of the battles. Like, everything just feels like it's just amped up to 11 with... You have all these soldiers flanking you now. Like, it truly feels like you're taking part in the middle of a war with just a massive battlefield and thousands of soldiers. And I love the scaling up in epicness, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, there's something very satisfying about finally seeing the army aspect of Fire Emblem, because they always talk about, like, we got to take care of the troops, we got to worry about the troops, and then you only focus on like 14 or so fighters at a time, and it's like, well, yeah, this is a big army or whatever, but to make them be more leaders of a certain troop, like a troop of axe users or sword users or mages or whatever, it makes the scale just seem so much more epic and act like an actual war. It's a small touch, but it works so well, and there's going to be more to it than just a visual thing too, as they made very clear in the trailer, showing you switching up formations for your troops. So there's some interesting aspects going on here.
Well, it seems like this is based in a new region though. Like, this looks like Faudland, I think is the name of the landmass that this, yeah. That's new, right? There's been no Fire Emblem game that takes place on that continent. So everything about this seems new. We really don't know what to expect going into it beyond what little we saw in the trailer.
Yeah, all we know so far is that there's a Church of Saros who basically has control over most of the land. It seems like they all Nintendo says is they exercise their power. To what degree, we'll have to see, but I've never met a church in an RPG that isn't evil, so...
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, when I was watching like the trailer and watching your analysis, Derek, I was kind of getting a sense of, almost like a Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions sense, with these, these warring nations and a church that is probably obviously going to end up being evil and trying to subjugate everyone else. And so, I was getting very much kind of like an old school political / religious intrigue kind of storyline from what we've seen so far, which, I mean, as a big Final Fantasy Tactics fan, if that's the kind of angle they're taking with 3 Houses, I'm super into that.
I like the new battle menus too. I like they're implementing things from the 3DS games that we like, but I think all the new battle menus look really cool. You've got like the attack and magic options as separate commands. You've got like combat arts. You got formation, which I assume is going to be like all of the soldiers coming in at once to do an attack. But I'm really, really excited for this, and I'm really upset this got delayed to spring, because I was expecting to play this this year, because they kept saying, nope, this is going to be a 2018 game. But at the same time, it's okay. If we're going to get a worldwide release in spring, I'll be okay with waiting a little bit, especially because we're going to be playing Smash Brothers and Pokemon all winter. So
yeah, exactly.
Speaking to that point, Roger, I do like the visual motif. I noticed like this recurring visual motif that almost uses like a radial hemisphere type layout. Like, you have that for the battle options, like attack, magic, battle, or I think is battle arts, but stuff like that. But then you also, underneath each unit, you have that kind of hemispherical HP meter as well, that on each unit that shows you at a glance, how their HP is doing. And I like that they seem to keep going back to that kind of hemisphere-like design, which is really neat.
It's very visually appealing. Like, one of the things I noticed as I was doing the analysis is that it feels like they're pulling from across a lot of different Fire Emblem games in order to make this. Like, there's some new stuff, but there's also echoes of past Fire Emblem games, because I think the visual design reminds me most of Echoes as far as like how the characters are designed and whatnot. The fact that weapon durability is back, so weapons can break once again, which I think is a good thing. It feels better for Fire Emblem in a weird way. I'm not sure. It worked. I think it worked better in Echoes for not having weapons break than Fates, but that's just personal choice. But I think it is a good thing to have weapon durability back. And then there's the brand new aspect of them clearly showing who the enemy units are going to attack on your side. Like those attack lines. That's
I love
really
that.
Cool.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things that I saw. Just one of the. It seems like they're just throwing a bone to players. Just it's not something that's going to make things crazy easy and streamline things. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that would piss off hardcore fans. But it is that just nice little extra bit of visual information that helps you plan out your moves and kind of plan out what you want to do. And it's very key, I think, that you don't get that information for units that are outside of your unit's attack range. So I think that's the key limiting factor there. Is if you could see what any unit on the battlefield was going to do on any given turn, that would be way too broken. But I do like that you can see what the enemy units within your range are likely to do on that turn.
I do like the aggro lines. I think they look really cool visually, and I think it's a nice little touch, know. I think everything in this seems streamlined in the best possible way without streamlining it, like taking away the challenge. Like, it just seems streamlined in terms of making the UI look really good.
Yeah. All the same information that you can expect is there. How accurate a hit is, how much damage you're going to do. You can really plan out your attacks. It all works really, really well. And even all the terrain bonuses that you can expect, they're all there. But there's also some new elements to it. Like, new elements in the fact that there's pulling from across different games, like such as the fact that archers can now attack right next to them, just like in Echoes, which is it's amazing how big that is. Every time it's actually a feature.
Well, we saw a new class in the trailer as well, right? Because Edelgard is an aristocrat,
right?
Which is like a new class that we have not yet seen before, which I think is going to be really cool. Like, what's going to be the awakened form of like an aristocrat? What's going to be their next level form? I'm just curious.
I'm not sure, like a Viscount or something like that, or Viscountess?
I don't know.
Yeah. But
I think it's a cool new class. I like it.
No, the fact that she can use both swords, axes, and magic, like that's pretty damn potent.
It's pretty broken.
Yeah.
Well, Fire Emblem in general has just kind of always played with this idea of like noblesse oblige in general. So maybe they'll just go straight up, like aristocrat, level that up, and then your new title is noblesse oblige. Like, just go for it and just spell it out right in front of you. Yeah.
Perfect. So, Roger, what did you think of that new perspective they showed? They have that new camera angle where it's a little closer to the troops. You can to all your units, so you can actually see the troops, and then it actually displayed the portraits of all the characters as well.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that. That goes right in line with all the changes they're making to the battle UI. I think every choice that they've made is smart, specifically because this is going to be on a home console. This isn't on a handheld, so I'm imagining how this is going to look on my 60-inch TV, right? Getting to see all these characters like around the battlefield and the camera swirling around, and then you see like the zoom in on the soldiers and they're all attacking. Meanwhile, you've got the enemy's aggro lines behind you. You've got the character portraits up in the air. I just think it looks really good. And another place in which I think the game looks beautiful is that new version of whatever My Castle is going to be, where you're walking in that overworld area. And I don't remember the name of the character that was walking around, the blue-haired guy. But that character goes to talk to Edelgard, and you get to see these just gorgeous castles and drawbridges and everything. So I feel like that's going to look amazing once we actually get the final game.
Byleth, I believe his name is. At least that's the canon name for your...
I know Edelgard, obviously, because she's like the new hotness, but then also Claude was the other one I noticed. He's this really cool looking guy with like awesome hair, and he's got this like yellow robe. So Claude and Edelgard are definitely going to be on my teams.
Nice.
I do like that in Byleth we seem to maybe have yet another vaguely blue-haired protagonist. Like as if Fire Emblem hasn't done that enough already. But yet another one to join the ranks of Marth and Lucina and Chrom and
Ike.
Ike, yes, of course.
Yeah. Well, it's okay, because if Sakurai puts any of these characters in Smash Brothers, you already know Edelgard's the one getting in, and Byleth is going to be laying on the ground saying, "I'll get my chance another day."
That's true.
Yeah, the design for the player character this time around seems cool enough, but the thing that got me the most attention out of me is that he's not a strategist. At least that's not what he's referred to as. or he's not a prince, he's a teacher. You're a teacher this time around. And that's a very different role. And I'm curious where they're going to go with that. Like, how much of an effect does your player character have in this game? Is it kind of minor, like in Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance, or is it going to be just as much as like Robin or Corrin?
I am curious, though, if they end up having relationships come back and support conversations, how that's going to be. Because, there's going to be some funny senpai-kohai conversations between Byleth and Edelgard. But that'd be a little weird, though, if you could marry Edelgard and you're her teacher. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't necessarily want that.
Oh, boy. Are we going into hot for teacher territory, which is a little
not.
like...
I hope not. Yeah.
I do kind of find myself wondering if we could be looking at a multi-pronged story, like narrative presentation here, where you can actually play through from the perspectives of all the different houses. Like, I guess something like, I'm thinking Fire Emblem Fates, but not multiple versions. Like, something like maybe Front Mission 3, where you see the same story from 2 different perspectives. I'm kind of wondering, because of the whole 3 houses angle, and the fact that we very clearly see these 3 different nations on the world map, I wonder if there may be like a multiple scenario type setup where you can play through it, the view of one of the houses and then switch to another, and then maybe they all come together at the end or something.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. The Japanese name for 3 houses is Fire Emblem Wind, Flower, Snow, and Moon. And so what I assumed is that the 3 houses are going to be Wind, Flower, and Snow, and then the mythical character is going to be whoever's laying there on the throne, where her head is sort of like tucked on the throne. I'm thinking she might be from the moon or something. Like, she's like the mythical kind of character. And then she's the one who sort of comes in and unites all the kingdoms.
Maybe, but with looking at the map, we saw a sigil for a flower. We saw ice, like that. I could see
snow.
the
there you go.
Fergus looking like snow. But then the one to the east, that's moon. They clearly have
there you go.
Moon on the crest.
Well,
so
then it's bizarre
wind.
they're calling it 3 houses and not 4 houses.
Yeah. So maybe she represents the wind. I mean, dragons also play a big part, and there's no way. Like, I'm not sure if that girl is Tiki anymore, because looking closer at the design, it's very much different. But it's definitely
She's gonna be
dragon
a Manakette.
girl. Oh
yeah, for sure. She'll be a Manakette.
Uh-huh.
Definitely. It's very interesting. Like, there's enough story tidbits here that I'm very curious. Like, the woman that I'm pretty sure is part of the Church of Saros, that's part of that huge battle where she doesn't, like, is emotionless the entire time until she gets a hold of that sword, which turns out to be the same chain sword that the old guy is using in the one scene of that, as people have pointed out that I missed in my analysis. There's some interesting aspects there. Like, what's this woman's deal? What's this fight all about? What's this sword all about? Like, there's enough mysteries here. They're like, okay, I want to see more. Tell me what you got.
All I know is I like the green-haired girl on the battlefield who's hugging the sword with the flower in her hair. She's great. She's rivaling Edelgard right now for the character that I like the most.
Well, no love for, I believe her name was Hilda, the pink-haired girl on the enemy team.
Yep.
Right.
There's also Mercedes. Like,
Mercedes, very nice.
They got plenty of girls there for you, Roger.
I'm happy. That's great. See, it's a Fire Emblem game for everyone.
And I think that's what they're aiming for. I think the sense I'm getting here is that they're trying to strike a really good balance between newer Fire Emblem and classic Fire Emblem. Because you talked about My Castle, and it very well might be like that, but I almost wonder if they're going to take aspects from Echoes and being able to maybe explore dungeons. Maybe that's where the whole weird automaton scene comes from.
That would be awesome. I would love that.
That's what I'm hoping for, because like a lot of those more traditional JRPG elements that found their way into Echoes are something that really appeals to me personally, so I would love to see like actual explorable dungeons in 3 houses.
A key point in explorable dungeons, because the dungeons in Echoes were very shallow until the very end.
Sure.
So hopefully they found a good way to balance that and make it work, but I would not mind seeing the feature come back. It was fun to run around and do all these things, and I don't know, I feel like there's a way they can really make this work, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit too, and I want to bring it up again, is the visual style. Because I think like when you're seeing it from the top-down perspective, it does remind me a lot of like the ones that were on Wii and on GameCube. Mm-hmm. But I actually think when it zooms in, it reminds me a lot of Fire Emblem Warriors. because I've played more Fire Emblem Warriors than literally anybody else that I know. I love that game still. And yeah, visually it really captures that look to me, which is great because I thought Fire Emblem Warriors looked really good. But I think in terms of the way the characters look, and even some of the battle scenes that happened later on in that trailer, like that battle against the automaton, where they sort of swirl around the screen and you see some of the characters there with the soldiers, it looks like something out of a Warriors game.
No, it does. And I think the fact that you have so many soldiers on screen, I think that also helps reinforce that idea.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed that too, Roger, and I'm right there with you. I played a good, I'd say about 50 hours of Fire Emblem Warriors. I really ended up enjoying it a lot more than I expected to, and I was thinking the same thing. Like, I was definitely getting a Fire Emblem Warriors vibe from the overall, not like specific parts of the graphics, but just kind of the overall spectacle of everything going on, and I was a big fan of that.
But unfortunately, I'm trying to think, there's really not a whole lot of other information out there. We just have a couple named characters and a hint of the story, but as far as gameplay, like, they've sold me on the gameplay.
Oh yeah, and I'm fine with them not revealing a lot more. Obviously, we have so much stuff to go through in terms of Smash Brothers and Pokemon that if this is coming out early next year, I don't really want to be spoiled on all the aspects of the story in a bunch of different trailers. Like, you could show me more of like what the battles look like, or maybe some early moments in the game. But Fire Emblem's story is always so interesting to me that I really don't want to be spoiled on stuff. And I think Nintendo's had a bad habit recently of spoiling big aspects of the games in their trailers. You could see the moon in the Mario Odyssey trailers, for Christ's sake. So I think, like, maybe don't show too much.
Yeah,
right.
They're kind of bad about that. So what it'll be is they'll be really secretive up until a month before, and then they reveal everything. That's how it always goes.
Yeah. So if you guys had to hazard a guess right now, would you guess that the story is going to be connected to the wider Fire Emblem universe, or do you think this will be more of a standalone story? Like, as I understand it, Fire Emblem Fates didn't ever really connect itself to the wider Fire Emblem lore. So what do you guys think is gonna happen with Three Houses?
Well, I mean, there's always hints to the games connecting to each other through, like, Easter eggs and things, and I've always assumed that they're part of the same world, but I do think this one will be a lot more standalone. Just based on the fact that we're on a new continent with new characters, that right there tells me that, like, okay, this is something very different from what we've seen before. This isn't like where Awakening was taking place on the same continent as Marth and all that kind of stuff. Those characters don't know about each other. So I actually don't think it's going to have that many connections. And if we do connections, I wouldn't be surprised to see DLC for the game where maybe they, end up connecting this world to Awakenings or something like that.
Oh, that's a good point.
I mean, Fire Emblem is a weird thing where some games connect and other games don't. Like, 1 through 3 take place in the same world. Awakening is the same world, but just thousands of years later. 4 and 5, I believe, are in the same world. 6 and 7 are in the same world. 7 and 8. Like, they always go in twos with the same worlds and whatnot with all of these. But they're usually, like, there's a few games that take place within the same universe. But when you look at overall, it's rare that they connect completely, which is fine. It makes it able to just keep going and still have those aspects that everybody remembers and enjoys. So I could see it having some connection to maybe Marth's storyline, because, again, with Echoes, it's the same world, but it's a completely different continent, and you only meet a few of the characters that originally appeared in Shadow Dragon. So it's interesting and like that. So if they do an aspect like that, it'd be kind of cool if they brought in some of the other characters. Like, wouldn't that be something of all of a sudden, like, oh, by the way, Lynn's here or something?
I would love for them to tie this into the Fates world, just because I do want to see more of Camilla and Xander and the rest of them. I love those characters from Norse, so I think it'd be cool to see them interact, because they're, like, goofier compared to the characters or what we've seen of this game so far. So I think it'd be kind of neat to see those characters interact with each other in some type of DLC.
Yeah.
But that world is also very dark. I feel like the world of Nor was one of the darkest of any of the other Fire Emblem games in terms of, like, their king and all the things that happen there. So I do think it would actually fit into the game. It would just be a matter of fitting them into this art style. So
Right.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly what they plan on doing. But from everything we've seen so far, this seems completely separate from any other Fire Emblem game before.
Yeah.
Other than the existence of, once again, oh no, the Manakets are here, so what a shock.
Right.
All right, well, any final thoughts on Fire Emblem Three Houses?
Did you guys, by the way, I hope I'm not the only one who thought this, when you first saw the title, did you think it was Fire Emblem Tree Houses?
I didn't, but I love that. I didn't
It
even
went
think
by
about
really
that.
quickly, and I was like thinking about the Treehouse Live, and so if you go watch my live reaction, I was like, Fire Emblem Treehouses? What the heck?
That's Fire Emblem Kids, you know?
Right, yeah.
Oh god, that'd actually be really entertaining.
I will say I had a similar problem a couple of years ago when Breath of the Wild was revealed, and I could not for the life of me remember that name, so I kept either calling it Breath of the Wind or Call of the Wild. I don't know why. It took me a good couple of days to like really settle on, okay, it's Breath of the Wild. Get it right, Ash. So
Yeah.
it didn't happen with me with Tree Houses, but I definitely know what you mean.
The big problem I have is I keep wanting to call it Fire Emblem The Three Houses.
Yeah,
because
I am having that.
yeah.
It feels a little awkward to say Fire Emblem Three Houses. I don't know why, but by the same token, I always like to call The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, not The Wind Waker. So maybe I'm weird.
Okay.
So I don't know, but
Yeah.
anyway, I think that covers it for our Fire Emblem discussion, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And Roger, where can we find you at?
You can find me at RogersBase on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, and on Instagram. I uploaded a live reaction to Fire Emblem Three Houses right after it happened. I literally ripped the video as I was still streaming and uploaded it, so you can go check that out to see me stumble over the name and call it Tree Houses.
I still wouldn't mind seeing Fire Emblem Kids go back to the old Virtua Fighter Kids aspect.
That would actually be pretty funny. I'd be down for that.
And of course, be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Fire Emblem and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.